Hello, everybody, or nobody. I can't really tell the difference. My name's Kim Briggeman, and I'm here to do a reading today on behalf of the Historical Museum at Fort Missoula and its annual book sale. As most of you know, about this time of year, every year, the museum hosts a humongous book sale in the Heritage Hall, and in recent years, it's spread on over into the T1 building next door. I've had the privilege of previewing the last several book sales for the Missoulian, and let me tell you, it's a visceral experience to walk into that building with so many thousands of books and book smells and the sounds of volunteers getting ready for the sale. Alas, this year, because of COVID, we're doing the first virtual book sale, and it'll be running throughout December, and we welcome you to check out what books are online at, let me get this right, fortmissoulamuseum.org. I'm going to be reading from a book that I love. It's called The River and I, by John Neihardt. In 1908, Neihardt, who's probably best known for his book Black Elk Speaks, was commissioned by an outdoors magazine called Outing to float from Fort Benton on the Missouri down to Council Bluffs, where near his home in a small town in Nebraska, and then write about it in a series of articles. After he made the float, the magazine changed hands, and as it turned out, the series was published by a different magazine, Putnam, and in 1910, it was made into the first edition of the book, The River and I, by John Neihardt. I'm going to read a couple of selections that kind of, I guess, portray some of the, not only the literary, but the historic and geographical charms of Neihardt's book. First one is from the chapter called 16 Miles of Awe. John made most of the trip with two others. One was he refers to as Bill, who was a photographer from Nebraska who was hired to take pictures along the way. Another one was just called the Kid, because he was a 16-year-old kid, and the Kid was the only one who made the whole trip with Neihardt. Our party of three left the railroad at Great Falls, a good 2 days walk upriver from Benton, the head of Missouri River navigation, to which point our boat material had been shipped and our baggage checked. A vast sunburned waste of buffalo grass, prickly pears, and sagebrush stretched before us to the north and east, and on the west, the filmy blue contour of the Highwood Mountains lifted like sun-smitten thunderclouds in the July swelter. One squinting far look, however, told you that these were not rain clouds. The very thought of rain came to you with the vagueness of some birth-surviving memory of a former time. You looked far up and out to the westward and caught the glint of snow on the higher peaks, but the sight was unconvincing. It was like a story told without the vital impulse. Always had these plains blistered under this July sun. Always had the spots of alkali made the only whiteness, and the dry, harsh snarl and snap of the grasshopper's wings had pricked this torrid silence through all eternity. The three men were walking from Great Falls to Fort Benton, alongside the Great Falls, the falls, the five falls, and Neihardt explained or described the experience. 500 miles below its source, the falls of the Missouri begin with a vertical plunge of 60 feet. This is the Black Eagle Falls, presumably named so by Lewis and Clark and other explorers because of the black eagles found there. With all due courtesy to my big, surly, grumbling friend, the Black Eagle Falls, I must say that I was a bit disappointed in him. Oh, he is quite magnificent enough, and every inch a Titan to be sure. But of late years, it seems he has taken up with company rather beneath him. First of all, he has gone to work in a most plebeian, almost slave-like fashion, turning wheels and making lights and dragging silly little trolley cars about a straggling town. Also, he hobnobs continually with a sprawling, brawling, bad-breathed smelter, as no respectable Titan should do. And on top of it all, and this was the straw that broke the back of my sentimental camel, he allows them to maintain a park on the cliffs above him where the merest white-skinned counter-jumping pygmy may come of a Sunday for his glass of pop and a careless squint at the toiling Titan. Puny Philistines eating peanuts and watching Samson at his Gaza stunt. I like it not. Rather would I see the Muse Clio peeling potatoes, or Persephone busy with a banana cart. Leaning on the frame observation platform, I closed my eyes, and in the dull roar that seemed the voices of countless ages, the park and the smelter, and the silly, bustling trolley cars, and the ginger ale, and the peanuts, and my physical self, all but my own soul, were swallowed up. I saw my Titan brother as he was made, 400 yards of writhing liquid sinew, strenuously idle, magnificently worthless, flinging meaningless thunders over the vast arid plain, splendidly empty under star and sun. I saw him as La Verende must have seen him, busy only at the divine business of being a giant, and for a moment, behind shut eyes, it seemed very inconsequential to me that cranks should be turned and that trolley cars should run up and down precisely in the same place, never getting anywhere, and that there should be anything in all that tract but an austere black eagle or two, and my own soul, and my Titan brother. Remember, this is 1908, when Black Eagle Dam was the only one on the Missouri. When I looked again, I could half imagine the old turbulent fellow winking slyly at me and saying in that undertone you hear when you forget the thunders for a moment, "Don't you worry about me, little man. It's all a joke, and I don't mind. Only tomorrow, and then another tomorrow, and there won't be any smelters or trolley cars or ginger ale or peanuts or sentimentalizing outers like yourself. But I'll be here, howling under sun and stars." Dot, dot, dot. At the foot of the first fall, a mammoth spring wells up out of the rock. Nobody will tell you about it. You run across it by chance, and it interests you much more in that way. It would seem that a spring throwing out a stream equivalent to a river 100 yards wide and 2 feet deep would deserve a little exploitation. Down east, they would have a great white sprawling hotel built close by it, wherein one could drink spring water at a quarter the quart, with half a pathology pasted on the bottle as a label. But nobody seems to care about so small an ooze out there. Everything else is so big, and so it has nothing at all to do but go right on being one of the very biggest springs of all the world. This is really something, and I like it better than the quarter per quart idea. Came to the lower falls, the Great Falls, the big one that Meriwether Lewis discovered in 1805. I lay down and, crawling to the edge, looked over. 200 feet below me, straight down as a pebble drops, a watery inferno raged, and far-flung whirlwinds, all but exhausted with the dizzy upward reach, whisked cool, invisible mops of mist across my face. I caught myself tightly gripping the ledge and shrinking with a shuddering, instinctive fear. Then, suddenly, the thunder seemed to stifle all memory of sound and left only the silent universe with myself and this terribly beautiful thing in the midst of utter emptiness. Here's black and white picture that Bill must have taken of Mr. Neihardt looking down at the falls that are now backed up by Ryan Dam. I caught myself tightly gripping the ledge and shrinking with a oops, I read that part. And I loved it with a strange, desperate, tigerish love. It expressed itself so magnificently. And that is really all a man, or a waterfall, or a mountain, or a flower, or a grasshopper, or a meadowlark, or an ocean, or a thunderstorm has to do in this world. And it was doing it right out in the middle of the desert, bleak, sun leprosied, forbidding, with only the stars and the moon and the sun and a cliff swallow or two to behold. Thundering out its message into the waste places, careless of audiences, like a master, bully, grizzled old master bard singing, as most of them do, to empty benches. And it had been doing that 10,000 years and would do so for 10,000 more and never pause for plaudits. I'm going to jump ahead in the book. The three men made it to Fort Benton, assembled their 20-foot boat with a motor that didn't hardly work over a course of several weeks. And it wasn't until the 1st of August that they finally set sail down the Missouri. Somewhere below Judith Landing and the Dauphin Rapids, they shot a buck, and it was the first fresh meat they'd had on the trip. That night we pitched camp under a lone scrubby tree at the mouth of an arid gulch that led back into the utterly godforsaken Badlands. It was the wilderness indeed. Coyotes howled far away in the night, and diving beaver boomed out in the black stream. We built half a dozen fires and swung above them the choice portions of our kill. And how we ate, with what glorious appetites. It is good to sit with a glad-hearted company flinging words of joyful banter across very tall steins. It is good to draw up to a country table at Christmas time with turkey and pumpkin pies and old-fashioned puddings before you and the ones you love about you. I have been deeply happy with apples and cider before an open fireplace. I have been present when the brilliant swordplay of wit flashed across a banquet table, and it thrilled me. But, and but's in italics, there is no feast like the feast in the open, the feast in the flaring light of a night fire, the feast of your own kill with the tang of the wild and the tang of the smoke in it. It all came back there by the smoldering fires, the wonder and the beauty and the awe of being alive. We had eaten hugely, a giant feast, There had been no formalities about that meal. Lying on our blankets under the smoke drift, we had cut with our jackknives the tender morsels from a haunch as it roasted. When the haunch was at last cooked to the bone, only the bone was left. Heavy with the feast, I lay on my back, watching the gray smoke brush my stars that seemed so near. My stars, soft and gentle and mystical, like a dark-browed Jotun woman wooing the latent giant in me. The night pressed down. I closed my eyes, and through me ran the sensuous surface fires of her dream-wrought limbs. Upon my face, the weird magnetic lure of ever-nearing, never-kissing lips made soundless music. Like a sister, like a mother, she caressed me, lazy with the giant feast. And yet a drowsy, half voluptuous joy shimmered and rippled in my veins. Drowsing and dreaming under the drifting smoke rack, I felt the sense of time and self drop away from me. No now, no tomorrow, no yesterday, no I. Only eternity, one vast whole. Sunshot, star-sprent, love-filled, changeless. And in it all, one spot of consciousness more acute than other spots. And that was something that had eaten hugely and had now felt the inward flung glory of it all. The swooning, half voluptuous sense of awe and wonder, the rippling, shimmering, universal joy. And then suddenly, and without shock, like the shifting of the wood smoke, the mood veered and there was nothing but I. Space and eternity were I, vast projections of myself, tingling with my consciousness to the remotest fringe of the outward swinging atom drift. Through immeasurable night, pierced capriciously with shafts of paradoxic day, through and beyond the awful circle of yearless duration, my ego lived and knew itself and thrilled with the glory of being. The slowly revolving Milky Way was only a glory within me. The great woman star, jeweling the summit of a cliff, was only an ecstasy within me. The murmuring of the river out in the dark was only the singing of my heart, and the deep, deep blue of the heavens was only the splendid color of my soul. Bill snored. Among the glowing fires moved the black bulk of the kid, turning the hunks of venison. And then the universe and I, curiously mixed, swooned into nothing at all. And I was blinking at a golden glow, and from the river came a shouting. It was broad day. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for spending time with me and being part of the Historical Museum at Fort Missoula's first ever virtual book sale. If you enjoyed this reading, The River and I will be on sale at the book sale online. And if you're inspired, find this or a new favorite book for you or your family and friends this holiday season. Check out one of the literary treasures to be found online at fortmissoulamuseum.org/virtual book sale. And I encourage you to support our community and shared history by supporting the Historical Museum's virtual book sale. Goodbye. If I can figure out how to turn this off.